Hello everyone and welcome to Darkflame Cleft M+ Guide for Warlocks. This dungeon is all about candles, so let's grab one and do some mayhem. All Waxbeard is the first boss you'll face in the Cleft, and the fight mostly revolves around managing ads. Throughout the encounter, menial laborers will continuously swarm the group. Individually, they aren't dangerous, but in large numbers they can quickly become overwhelming. The boss occasionally targets a random player with luring candle flame, which applies a weak dot but more importantly causes every single menial laborer to fixate on that player. If you're the target, use everything you have to control the ads while giving your group a chance to cleave them down. Luckily, you aren't limited to just DPSing them. There are several ways to kill the ads using the environment. The first way is by luring them onto the railroad tracks where minecarts occasionally zoom through. The second method is during Reckless Charge, when the boss targets the furthest player and charges at them. Any laborer he runs through will be squashed. When the charging boss crashes into a wall, it triggers Cave-In, causing boulders to fall from the ceiling. Dodge these and watch them kill any laborers they hit. Every so often, a dynamite-filled cart will appear. This cart has to be destroyed within 20 seconds or it's most likely a wipe. Even if you somehow survive the initial explosion, the dot it leaves behind will finish you off. While Blazikon isn't related to any fire Pokemon, his flaming attacks will definitely make you feel the burn. This fight is all about candle management, as your main goal is to strategically light and extinguish them throughout the encounter. At the start, all candles in the room will be lit, but Blazikon will immediately extinguish them with Dousing Breath, dealing a strong party-wide damage in the process. Right after, he'll mark several players with Wicker Light Barrage. When a barrage projectile strikes a candle, it reignites it. Coordinate with your group so that at least half the candles are lit up. A few seconds after Barrage, Blazikon will cast Enkindling Inferno, a massive fire cone that targets all unlit candles, setting them ablaze and killing anyone caught in their path, while also applying a dot to each party member for each candle lit this way. To survive the cone, position yourself in areas where you successfully relit the candles and pop a defensive if too many candles remain unlit. Next, the boss will target all players with Extinguishing Gust, a wind attack that blows in your direction. If you position yourself so it hits a lit candle, it will extinguish the flame. Then he'll cast Incite Flames, erupting the flames from all remaining lit candles, filling conical sections of the room with fire, just like Enkindling Inferno did earlier. To survive, stand in areas where the candles were extinguished. And lastly, he will again cast Enkindling Inferno, lighting up any unlit candles and again applying a dot for all those reignited. After this, the cycle resets, with Blazikon once again extinguishing all the candles with Dousing Breath. The Candle King presents a unique fight where your main task is managing wax figurines. Shortly after the encounter begins, and periodically throughout, the boss will create wax statues of all players. These statues pulse every 2 seconds, dealing low but consistent damage to the entire party. If you come into contact with one, you'll be stunned for 5 seconds. As the fight progresses, more and more statues will appear, and your goal is to get rid of them before their combined damage becomes overwhelming. There are 2 ways to do this. The first method is using Darkflame Pickaxe. If you get targeted by this ability, position yourself so that the pickaxe strikes a Vex statue. The second method is with Throw Darkflame, which places a damaging circle around 3 random players. If you get targeted, you can use this to melt nearby statues. When a statue is destroyed this way, it leaves behind molten wax. Finally, the boss will occasionally cast Paranoid Mind, fearing all players for a few seconds. Make sure it doesn't go through. The darkness is a primordial enemy mentioned only in whispers, and it poses a real threat.
Darkness guides me. He's the only one with GPS after all.
You actually fight it twice. First time during the minecart gauntlet, where you bombard it with dynamite to chunk as much health as possible, and then in the actual encounter where the things get serious. The entire fight revolves around keeping the main candle burning. Standing within its light or carrying one of the smaller candles protects you from smothering shadows, which otherwise reduces your damage and healing by 99%. However, the main candle depletes over time. To keep it alive, you need to top it up with other smaller candles that spawn around the room. The darkness will do everything in its power to snuff out the light. Umbral Slash fires a massive frontal at the main candle, dealing heavy damage to anyone hit and significantly draining the candle's power. You can grab the candle with an extra action button and move it out of harm's way to counter this. Another dangerous ability is Shadow Blast, which places a large circle around the random player and deals damage when it detonates. If you're targeted, pop a defensive and move away. Hitting the candle with this will drain a lot of light from it. The boss will also summon dark spawns to aid him in Candle's demise. This is a channel which can be interrupted, and the faster you do it, the fewer adds will spawn. If they get near the candle, they start channeling Drain Light, which steadily reduces the candle's power while dealing pulsing damage to anyone nearby. Interrupt, CC or nuke them as fast as possible before they become a problem. Lastly, the boss casts Eternal Darkness, dealing strong party-wide damage while significantly dimming Candle's light. There's no way to prevent this, so the best you can do is to replenish the candle from other sources and pop a defensive to help out your healer. If at any point the main candle reaches 0 light, the darkness will cast Rising Gloom, dealing strong damage to everyone, fearing them, and applying a brutal 10-minute debuff that increases damage taken by 10% while reducing haste by 5%. Once the boss hits 55% HP, the fight ends. The trash in this dungeon isn't too difficult, but there are still a few things to watch out for. Before the first boss, you'll encounter rank overseers. They slam the ground around them, dealing heavy damage to anyone nearby. Their overpowering roar damages all party members, while at the same time increasing the haste and damage dealt by their allies. This buff stacks, so killing overseers is a priority. Royal Wick Lighters have 2 abilities, a dot and a fireball. Slow both and try to interrupt the dot. Despite their name, lowly mole herds are anything but lowly. They pelt random players with rocks, and when they drop below 50% they panic, gaining increased haste but reducing their damage by 25%. You can LOS them to make them move. Most importantly, they cast Mole Frenzy, enraging all nearby moles. Interrupt this, as moles apply a nasty dot to your tank and you don't want them to hit any faster. Before engaging Blazikon, you'll run into a few notable trash mobs. Kobold task workers bonk their primary target, usually the tank, dealing heavy melee damage and stunning anyone caught in their circle. Blazing Fiends cast Explosive Flame, which is a high priority interrupt. While the initial fire damage isn't too threatening, it applies a stacking debuff that increases fire damage taken by 10%. Since almost everything in this area deals fire damage, letting this debuff stack is a terrible idea. Wandering Candles have 2 AoE abilities. Quenching Blast deals moderate fire damage to everyone, while Surging Flames does lethal damage around the mob and leaves behind a fire pool. After defeating Blazikon, you'll encounter a room filled with Kobold Flame Tenders, after which you'll face a miniboss duo, Soot Snout and Torch Snarl. Soot Snout spams Candleflame Bolt and casts Flaming Tether, which roots the target and should be your priority interrupt. He also casts Ceaseless Flame, a large channeled frontal cone, and summons burning candles that deal damage if you stand too close to them. On the other hand, Torch Snarl charges a random player, grabs and stuns them for 5 seconds. You can use Demonic Circle to easily avoid him if you're targeted. He will also cast Massive Stomp, a damaging party-wide knockback. Lastly, he assaults the tank with Pyro Pummel, a short frontal, so don't be anywhere near. Before facing the darkness, you'll go through the Minecart Gauntlet. As long as you remain near a source of light, you'll be safe. However, if the minecart's light goes away, or you stray too far, you'll be silenced and receive 90% less healing. Your goal is to gather candles scattered throughout the tunnel and bring them to the minecart. You'll also have to defend your minecart from the enemies, and as long as they are near it, its speed will be reduced. Upon dying, Skittering Darkness will cast Suffocating Darkness, which inflicts massive shadow damage in a 5-yard circle. Shuffling Horrors, much like on the boss, will attempt to cast Drain Light, which drains your minecart's candlelight while dealing pulsing AoE damage. And lastly, Corridor Sleepers consume the corpses of their fallen allies, gaining a 10% damage increase per stack. And that's everything you need to know to conquer Darkflame Cleft. Remember, you do take Candle. If you found this guide helpful, please hit that like and subscribe button, as it means so much to me. You can also watch me live on Twitch, where I stream almost every day. Remember to soulstone and good luck!